It is Thursday, July 3rd, 2025, and the one big beautiful bill has just passed in the House, signed by the Speaker, and now making its way over to Trump's desk. Also, big econ news out this morning. The largest U.S. jobs report. Job growth now surging, unemployment crashing, experts legitimately dumbfounded. Really, Bloomberg scratching their heads, their talking heads scratching their heads after seeing these numbers. We'll show you that. And the most important part of this report was who in the country is gaining these jobs. It's not government jobs like some partisans are claiming. It's not illegal aliens. It's blue-collar, working-class Americans. We have the data. We'll show it to you. But before we get started, thank you for liking and sharing these videos. It really helps out the channel. And consider subscribing if you appreciate these regular updates.
This could not be a bigger deal for President Trump and for this administration. They believe that this bill really encapsulates everything President Trump wants to do with his agenda, that his legacy is going to be sealed in some of the items that are in this bill. And that's why it was so important to President Trump to get this across the finish line. It has been something that has been weighing on the White House as they have been negotiating, having conversations, courting House members for months. I mean, I was told 2 days ago that they felt like they had these month-long relationships with House members that they've been trying to address their problems for some time now. Now, the other problems with the bill, just to be clear, one of the other parts of this that I think might go unnoticed is how much this second term for President Trump is different than the first term. They have figured out in that 4 years that President Trump was not in office how to work the system in their favor. That was not something we saw during the chaotic first term. And, in the last couple of days, we've been talking about this nonstop, this idea that, is the bill on the verge of collapse? And every time I spoke to White House officials, they said they like their odds. They think that they are feeling optimistic. And when I ask why, they just point me to what we've seen for the past 6 months, which was anytime President Trump has wanted to get something done in Congress, even with people opposing it, almost every time he has been able to strong arm something through the Senate, through the House that he wanted to get done in terms of his agenda.
One big, beautiful bill has finally passed the House. It passed the Senate a few days ago. Then today, after the Dems ran out of their stall tactics, coming up for a final vote and passing. The final tally coming to 218 yay votes to 214 nays, with Thomas Massie and Fitzpatrick voting with the Democrats. Upon its passage, chants of USA erupting on the House floor.
On this vote, the yeas are 218, the nays are 214. The motion is adopted.
So President Trump has been back in office for 165 days. Today is day 165. Back in office for 5 months and 13 days. That's all. Less than 6 months. It feels like a lot longer. And he now has win after win after win. Even mainstream media admitting this now. Watch.
Here are some things that have happened. Gas prices down. Economic indicators are decent. Brand new jobs report shows that's much better than expected. And border crossings are down. And now Trump's mega spending bill looks like it's going to be passed by Republicans. How do you Democrats fight back with the wins that Trump can tout?
Well, it depends on how you define win, Sarah. I mean, the way I can summarize this big ugly bill best is Republicans caved, Trump lied, and people will die. This bill does kick 17 million people off of their health care. That's people who are on Medicaid, who are extremely vulnerable, like veterans and the elderly, the disabled, and children. We're talking about the largest cuts to nutrition assistance, meaning people are going to go hungry. 4 million people lose their nutrition assistance, 31,000 in my district alone. That jobs report you just mentioned, there's really not many jobs in that jobs report that they can point to that are in the private market. So it's a hollow jobs report.
And I know Debbie Wasserman-Schultz is probably the most partisan member of Congress, but to claim the jobs report that dropped this morning was a nothing burger is like next level copium. And we have the proof in the report. We have the hard data to back this up. In 165 days, Trump's policies have sparked what you can only describe as a domestic labor renaissance for blue-collar American workers. The largest U.S. jobs report just dropping, showing a massive beat, a blowout June payroll report, 147,000 jobs added, smashing through the expectations. The unemployment rate falling to 4.1%. In June, the U.S. adding 147,000 new payrolls, blowing away the median. The median estimate was 106,000, even beating the upward revised May print of 144,000, which is a big deal because May has 31 days in it, June doesn't. Bloomberg completely perplexed by this after having polled 79 experts. 78 of the economists that they polled predicted a lower number than what we got. Said another way, this report proving the experts wrong again. The unemployment rate was expected to rise to 4.3%. The Fed, get this, the Federal Reserve under Jerome Powell put out their own expectations saying that we'd see the unemployment rate jump to 4.5%. Instead, what happened? It fell to 4.1%.
You expected some of this, but this is better than expected?
Yeah, Sarah, it is. Look, this jobs market is like the Energizer Bunny. Every single time we expect it to run out of steam, it just keeps going and going. So these new numbers show that the U.S. economy added 147,000 jobs in June. That was well ahead of the expectation of about 118,000, well ahead of some whispers that we heard on Wall Street of a sub 100,000 number. So this is indeed beating expectations. We were also expecting a slowdown. We did not get that. This is basically in line with May, which was revised higher. It's also good news. The unemployment rate was expected to go up. It didn't. It went down to 4.1%. That is a very healthy number. This is still relatively historically low. And again, it's below the 4.3% that we had expected.
This is good news, much better than expected. An upside surprise on headline payrolls, 147, the estimate 106. The unemployment rate was at 4.2. In our survey, economists were looking for that to climb up to 4.3. It comes in at 4.1. And if you want some high frequency data, or at least some higher frequency data, jobless claims much lower than expected across the board here in the labor market. This is a pretty solid read.
But most importantly, who in this country is getting all of these new jobs? Blue-collar, working-class Americans. This is what's so crazy about this. Not foreign-born immigrants like we've seen for the last 4.5 years, but American-born workers. How this is not the biggest political talking point right now is mind-numbing. Trump world needs to hammer this point home. Check this out. Over the last 4 years under Biden, native-born workers lost 1.4 million jobs. Yet over the same period, foreign-born immigrant workers gained 3 million jobs. 1.4 for Americans lost, 3 million gained for immigrant workers. We could see it on this chart. Look at this. 2020, this is when Trump left office. This is the proof that the last administration was the worst thing to ever happen to the working class in this country. Well, look at it now. In the month of June, last month, U.S. adding 830,000 native-born workers to the labor market, and at the same time losing 348,000 foreign-born workers, smashing this 4-year trend to pieces and extending the window to March. So look at this. Take the last 3 months, not just June, but take the last 3 months. You won't believe this. The U.S. adding 1.5 million native-born workers and losing 1 million foreign-born workers in the labor market. This should be hands down the number one political talking point right now. The thing that matters the most to Americans no longer having to compete with illegal aliens for jobs. The proof is in the pudding. It's in the data. It's hard data. Likewise, unemployment falling, markets breaking new all-time highs again today. The S&P breaking a new record high again. Inflation still falling. CPI now at 2.1%. And Republicans just passing the most pro-worker legislation in a century. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime. No tax on overtime, that's a huge plus for a lot of workers. And a tax break on Social Security. 5.5 months in office, win after win, means we now have a record to look at, to compare. We can go back and look at Trump's record, what all the panicans claimed would happen versus the reality of what's actually happening in real time. Here's Elizabeth Warren, for example, 3 months ago, telling us, promising, in fact, what we'd see today. She said within months, we'll see this. Watch what she said.
Comes in and basically starts the dumbest trade war in the history of this country. This is going to be about potentially millions of people losing their jobs. It's going to be about millions of people losing their savings, many of people losing their retirement security, and at the same time taking on even higher costs for everything they buy. So that's going to push us in potentially to foreclosures or people being pushed out of their apartments. You know, I remember this from 2008 and how long it took us to dig our way out. And to this day, there are families, there are communities that still haven't recovered. Recessions can be all those fancy charts and graphs, but at the end of the day, people feel them one person at a time, and they can be devastating.
The One Big Beautiful Bill is primarily about tax cuts. It makes permanent Trump's 2017 tax cuts, but it also eliminates tax on tips, no more tax on overtime. It also strips Medicaid from all illegal aliens. Illegals, in some cases, were able to receive Medicaid. There were millions of undocumented migrants receiving free Medicaid. But something else it does, which not many people seem to mention, is it funds Trump's mass deportation agenda, providing, get this, $170 billion to ICE. That's a lot of money. Making ICE now the most well-funded law enforcement agency on the planet. It fully funds and pays for Trump's border wall, not via tax dollars, but by increasing fees for people crossing the border and for those who file for asylum. This is big. This will deter the phony use of our asylum system. The bill adds a new $1,000 fee to apply for asylum, which was previously free. Then an additional $100 annual fee for each year an asylum application remains backlogged in the immigration system. Even Hakeem Jeffries, the top Dem in the House, admitting this bill acts as a deportation machine. Deportation on steroids, he says. Watch.
Speaker, that's not what this country should be all about. Manu wasn't the only one. The only American citizen who's been targeted by the deportation machine, a deportation machine that will be unleashed on steroids by this one big ugly bill. We know that, in fact, is the case. That's not hyperbole.
Trump now has the resources he needs to fully implement the mass deportation agenda. There's nothing stopping him and ICE from getting the job done now. 10 million in the next 3.5 years, 10 million immigrants, illegal immigrants that Joe Biden let in, getting them out of here in 3.5 years is now very doable after this. We shall see. Let me know what you think about the One Big Beautiful Bill. So much of what Trump promised legislatively was just achieved by this bill. Let me know your thoughts. All right, that wraps up this episode. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time.